Hello, I'm Bob Casanova, licensed marriage and family therapist and the chair for this year's CAMP's annual conference, Advancing the Art and Science of Psychotherapy. And it's my distinct honor this morning to present Jennifer Shannon, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified diplomat in cognitive behavioral therapy, specializing in anxiety. She co-founded the Santa Rosa Center for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy and has over 30 years experience in treating children, teens, and adults. Jennifer is the author of several books: Don't Feed the Monkey Mind, The Anxiety Survival Guide for Teens, The Shyness and Social Anxiety Workbook for Teens, and A Teen's Guide to Getting Stuff Done. She speaks regularly at national conferences and has been featured in magazines as well as newspapers. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Bob. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
You're welcome. And why should people be interested in attending your workshop?
Yeah, my workshop is treating panic and agoraphobia. Mm-hmm. And panic and agoraphobia are probably the most common types of anxiety that people present. And they tend to be very motivated because panic disorder can really interfere with functioning. And more people are beginning to look for cognitive behavioral therapy. They're actually seeking it out, or their doctors will refer them to cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy is particularly effective in working with anxiety disorders, including panic and agoraphobia. Something that I learned a while ago, and it's quite astounding, is that 50% of all adults have had at least one panic attack.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that 50% of the adults, it will develop into panic disorder, but they happen a lot. And they're also happen with a lot of, like you can present with panic and agoraphobia, but a lot of the other anxiety disorders like social anxiety, phobias, those also, there'll be panic attacks as part of what's happening with that type of anxiety.
So then how does cognitive behavioral therapy differ from other approaches to treating panic and agoraphobia?
Well, the main difference is that cognitive behavioral therapy for panic is an exposure-based model. And what that means is that you're actually, so panic disorder is a fear of physical sensations like rapid heartbeat, lightheadedness or dizziness, difficulty feeling like you're having difficulty breathing. And panic itself is the fear of those sensations. And the more that people are afraid of those sensations, lo and behold, the more those sensations start occurring. And so the more and more panic attacks that start happening. And in cognitive behavioral therapy, the cognitive part is to really understand the physiology of fear and understanding the cycle of panic, that it's a fear of sensations, and the more you're afraid of them, the more you have panic attacks, and what's really happening in your body. And then it's really about exposing you to the interoceptive exposures. And that's a main ingredient. It differs from other types of therapy in that it's hands-on and experiential. You're really doing it in the session with the client. I mean, I think a lot of people, their first line of defense is teach relaxation techniques. And I'll tell you what, if relaxation techniques work with a person who's coming in for panic, hallelujah. But most of the time, relaxation does not work for people who have panic disorder. In fact, it can actually work against panic, because what the person does is they're having a panic attack and they've been taught to do these breathing techniques. And so they're in this panic attack and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to do my breathing technique so I stop having this panic attack. And the relaxation becomes just like another attempt to try to get rid of the anxiety. And they're still in the cycle of anxiety. Having an alternative way of approaching the sensation through exposure, incredibly effective.
I see. So in your own practice, and working with other clinicians, what tends to get in the way of treatment? And, what are some of the common pitfalls in treating a person with this presentation?
Yeah. I would say that the biggest, by far, issue with treating panic disorder is, the biggest issue is therapists get anxious when their clients get anxious.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and so in doing, if you're doing an exposure with a client and they start feeling panicky, it's all good. This is good news, because you need to have the person experience these sensations, experience anxiety, learn to take a different stance towards it, how to do exposure effectively, so that they can go up, through, and over the panic and learn to come out the other side. So instead of resisting the anxiety sensations or trying to get rid of them, they're learning how to manage them. And you do that in the practice with the client in the session.
Got it.
So if the therapist can get comfortable and seeing that the anxiety is part of the healing and can really help the client be able to hang in there with it, then they're going to have a much better outcome. So a big part of the workshop, why I'm so excited about doing it, is because it's going to be very, very experiential. I'm going to be modeling exactly how I talk to a client who has panic and agoraphobia, so that the workshop attendees can watch, what does a session look like for somebody who has panic? I'm going to be demonstrating what a session looks like, how to explain panic to the client, and how to introduce interoceptive exposures with the client, how to actually do the exposures. And the other part of this, Bob, is let's say a therapist reads about panic treatment.
Right.
You read about the things, but until you actually do it, have the experience of doing it, you don't know what it's going to feel like. And the first step is getting therapists comfortable with interoceptive exposures. Because when you do the exposure, it does activate a lot of physical sensations, and we're not used to those. So therapists have to get used to those sensations as well. I also mentioned how common panic is. So that means that there's going to be a percentage of therapists who have panic disorder as well. And it's not a rule out. When I was in graduate school, Bob, I developed panic disorder. So I know it from the inside out. And I know through the therapy of what to do. And I was able to completely cure myself of panic using very powerful cognitive behavioral therapy approaches. Having that experience, knowing what that's like, it doesn't mean there's a rule out. In fact, I think it helps me in really working with people who have panic. So it's not a rule out, but you do have to be able to, you have to have treated yourself if it's a problem, and be able to really confidently work with people with panic.
So Jennifer, what could participants in your workshop hope to get from attending your workshop, that they can bring in their offices and actually use,
Yeah, the whole idea is really to give the nuts and bolts of what this therapy is like. And to be able to watch through role model, not just I'll be role modeling it, and then we'll have breakouts so that you can actually try. You're going to be trying the exposures. You're going to be explaining, having some role plays, explaining the treatment to other participants so that you have that practice at it. What you're going to gain, other kinds of things are like how to create hierarchies for agoraphobia, because there's, different things, different levels. When you do an exposure, you're not going to start at the top of the ladder. You're going to start more at the bottom, and then how to create a hierarchy with a client. So the workshop will teach that. Though I think those things you can get from a book. What you can't get from a book that this workshop is going to do is, what does it feel like to be in the session? What does it feel like when the client starts getting anxious? How does it feel like to do these exposures oneself and that experience? I would say, so it's going to be very hands-on, really understanding in a real way what this therapy looks like. I will say that in first learning this and understanding it, then it's really practicing, and I think it's helpful to get ongoing kind of support around it. But I'm hoping that what it'll do is excite workshop participants and say, oh, this looks like something I really do want to treat, and to give them the encouragement that you can treat panic. Panic is actually one of my favorite things to treat because it's so treatable. It is so treatable, and you can do it in a very brief period of time. I think this is something else that just therapists need to know, is that there's a very short, brief type of therapy that you can do that's effective. This is very appealing to clients. Clients want to, coming in, They want that it's causing problems. They want treatments. They want to know that it's something that they can do in a brief period of time. So it's gaining that confidence and learning to do this type of therapy.
Yes, I could see clinicians feeling very confident after attending a workshop like this. Is so commonplace in our practices. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I kind of took a bunch of different notes, and let me just see if there's anything else that I really want people to know.
Mm-hmm. I'm hopeful that participants will come away with specific tools they could use in their offices to help the people they work with.
Absolutely. I know when I go to a workshop, Bob, it's when I go to a workshop, I'm most interested in what is a therapy, what does this treatment look like? You know, and having a real life demonstration. First of all, my workshop is early in the morning. I think it starts at 8. It's going to be, even if you're tired, the workshop's going to be very enlivened. And when I go to a workshop, that's what I love to see. And that's really as when I teach, I want to teach it in a way that's really demonstrating, giving a sense of, we often work in our little offices and we don't get to see what are therapists actually doing. You're going to be able to watch me, see what I do with clients, learn from that, and then actually experience it. So yes, it's that hands-on, experiential, as well as the really understanding the rationale for this type of therapy and how to, because this is an important part, how to explain the rationale to the clients. The therapy, while very effective, it's challenging therapy. Exposure therapy is a challenging therapy to provide, super effective. And if you are able to, and this is the cognitive part, if you're able to really explain to clients what the therapy is about and why it's so effective, they're going to be on the same page with you. They're going to join you and they're going to have much better treatment outcomes.
So it sounds like a fabulous and invaluable workshop for participants in this year's conference. So thanks very much, Jennifer. I appreciate you taking the time this morning to talk to us, and remind everybody, if you wouldn't mind, when your workshop is. And
sure, my pleasure. By the way, Bob, talking with you. It's been fun. So the workshop is April 26th. It's 8 in the morning, and it's called "Don't Panic When Treating Panic and Agoraphobia: Effective Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Interventions That Work."
Great. Thanks again, Jennifer. Have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye.